Next, let's talk about R.G. Frey's paper. Frey believes that it's justified to use animals for scientific experiments, subjecting them to agony at times, although as little as possible, if there's potential to develop some kind of treatment that would help a human being live longer or be happier. One thing he makes clear is that he doesn't believe this because he thinks animals lack moral standing. This means that he thinks that animals have value and we should avoid doing them harm. However, he thinks animals have less value than beings with greater capacities, which of course would include normally functioning adult humans. He thinks this matches our intuitions, and indeed, if there's an opportunity to save a human being or a dog in a burning building, most people intuitively believe you ought to save the dog. It appears that our intuitions have us believing that the human being has more value than the dog. That doesn't mean the dog lacks value, but it doesn't have as much. So what gives humans this added value? Frey talks about the richness of a human life in comparison to an animal's life. He says, part of the richness of our lives involves activities that we have in common with animals, but there are as well whole dimensions of our lives: love, marriage, educating children, jobs, hobbies, sporting events, cultural pursuits, intellectual development and striving, etc., that greatly expand our range of absorbing endeavors and so significantly deepen the texture of our lives. It's on the basis of this added richness of the life of a normally functioning human being that can justify researching on animals when there is a promise that this result will lengthen human lives or allow us to live better. Frey argues that the quality of a life is a function of its richness. And that means that humans have a higher quality life than animals, and there can therefore be justification for harming an animal in order to help a human. He argues lives of less richness have less value. Now, Frey is worried about a certain kind of counterargument, that he is a speciesist. A speciesist is someone who, without good reason, props up the interests of one group, one's own species, over another group, some other species. It's analogous to racism. The racist is someone who, without good reason, props up the interests of one race over another. So just as a racist grants value according to membership in a race, a speciesist grants value according to membership in a species. This is a serious counterargument. If racism is to be justified, there needs to be a good reason for it. The reason racism fails is because all attempts to justify it fail. If speciesism is to be justified, there needs to be a good reason for it. Frey is not aware of one, and so he doesn't want his argument to be characterized as speciesist. To avoid speciesism, he makes it clear that he is not assigning value based on membership within the human species. He is assigning value based on the richness of life. This means that what some philosophers call, quote, marginal human beings, which include humans with significant disabilities that make them unable to have a rich life, have less value than other human beings. Frey argues just this. He argues not all human lives have the same richness and value. The logical consequence of this is that if we support experimenting on animals because their lives have less value, because they are unable to lead the rich lives normally functioning adult human beings live, we must also be open to the idea that experimenting on marginal human beings can be morally acceptable. Frey argues that if experimenting on humans makes one uncomfortable, one should equally be uncomfortable with experimenting on animals, as some marginal human beings have the same value as some animals. By arguing this way, Frey avoids some of Norcross's criticism. Norcross suggests that all humans have the same high value and no humans should be subjected to torture, and it then follows that we shouldn't subject animals to great harm because some humans have the same capacities as some animals. Frey disagrees with Norcross that all humans have the same high value. He argues that some humans have more value than others. Does this mean we should start experimenting on humans? Not necessarily. For the same reasons we should be careful about experimenting on animals, because remember, according to Frey, animals do have value, we should be careful about experimenting on marginal human beings. To experiment on any being with value, animal or human, we would need a very good reason. The good the experimentation would bring must be significant to justify the harm animals or humans would endure to achieve it.